While IO said that Hitman 2016 was overall a success, the episodic format wasn't. They ended up parting ways with Square Enix because of it. But in the end, they did get to keep the IP. IO wanted to try again with what was supposed to be the second season, but this time as a fully completed $60 game. They would partner with Warner Brothers, who would then become their publisher, and in November of 2018 would release Hitman 2. Yeah, that title will inevitably lead to some confusion and verbal discussion now that there are two Hitman 2s in the series. I really wish they just went with an actual subtitle, like "The World is Your Weapon" or something. Technically, it does have one on the start screen, but the only thing that is differentiating the two Hitman 2s is that one has the Silent Assassin subtitle, which already caused confusion due to Silent Assassin being the highest rating in the ranking system, and the new Hitman 2 is just in all caps. This episode of the retrospective is going to be a little different. See, the original plan for this was to get all of the retrospective episodes finished and then lead up to a review of Hitman 2, which had just come out when I started this back in 2018. Yeah, I'm not the best when it comes to consistently working on a long multi-game overarching project. Stay tuned to the end of the Yakuza retrospective in 2025, right before the release of Yakuza 13, where you will be playing as 80-year-old Kazuma Kiryu on his deathbed, where he has to whip some sense into the Tojo clan for one last time, featuring a minigame where you have to make sure you're taking all the right water pills before bed and changing your colostomy bag. So this video is going to be more review-like, since there isn't really much to look back on in retrospect, as the game isn't even 2 years old at the time of writing this. It also doesn't help that this game has this awkward middle game vibe to it, since it is the second game in the trilogy, but we'll get more into that in just a bit. If this video title wasn't obvious enough, if you've played Hitman 2016 or seen my previous episode in this series on it, then you know what you're getting into. I hope the title of More of the Same doesn't come off as negative as I fear it might. It may be following the formula of the game that came before it, but I really liked that game, and I love this game even more. But since it's technically Season 2, it still has a lot of the same issues, so let's go over those first. The always online problem is sadly here to stay, it seems, and it's still as unjustifiable as it was in the previous game. Nothing takes me out of this game more than planning my hit and bam, I'm disconnected from the internet because Spectrum is horrible, and we are in the middle of a global pandemic. Elusive targets are also still as divisive as ever, and it's even harder to justify keeping this game installed compared to 2016 when this game is fucking massive. It's nearly 200 gigabytes. You still run into the same issue of not knowing what is a restricted area, and after just taking one step into it, you could end up getting spotted and lose your Silent Assassin rating. Seriously, I wish that restricted areas were colored red on your minimap depending on what disguise you're in. The confusion for customers is still an issue. When the game first came out, I was hard shilling this game as much as I could, and I had a ton of people come back to me asking what version of the game do they get, because all of the additions were confusing them. It's honestly not that bad. It takes like 5 minutes at most to figure out everything, but in reality there shouldn't be any confusion in the first place on what people should buy. I think if you need graphics and spreadsheets and I'm getting multiple people coming back to me asking what to get, then there's probably still a problem. The Steam page has been cleaned up now, and I don't really remember if and how much worse it was, but I don't think the explanations were under the bundles back in 2018. I tried to look at the Steam page on the Wayback Machine, but it kept me in an age verification loop, so I really couldn't see for myself. All you need to know now is that the starter pack is free and it allows you to play the tutorial level. This is about on scale with one of the smaller levels from the original 4 games. It gives you a taste of what the game is like and if you'll like the formula. Standard Edition gives you the entire base game, and Gold Edition gives you the entire base game and all of its DLC. I believe that Standard Edition is a reworked version of the Silver Edition that was available at launch, which was what was causing all of the confusion. There is still the Silver to Gold upgrade DLC, and it has a little notice telling Standard Standard Edition owners to not buy this and instead buy the expansion pack. See what I mean when this shit is more convoluted than it needs to be? Most people are going to think you're nickel and diming them, even if that's not the case, or they're going to get too confused and get turned off and not buy your fucking game. The big thing to note is that you can actually play all of Hitman 2016 in Hitman 2. You can either buy both of the legacy upgrades so you get all of the base game and the Patient Zero DLC, but if you already owned Hitman 2016 and its DLC, you would get this for free. So the most cost-efficient method in my experience and what I've recommended to people in the past is to get Hitman 2016 and its DLCs on sale, usually when there's a Steam sale or from one of the reputable websites. It's usually around $5 when it's on sale, and then buy Hitman 2. That's pretty much all the issues with the game, other than the potential fact that some people who played 2016 didn't like it because the formula felt very achievement hunting focused with all of the challenges and story opportunities. If you are one of those people, then you aren't going to like this game at all, since it's more of that, but better. Since this was originally supposed to be Season 2, there isn't much in the way of gameplay innovation. Realistically, there didn't need to be too much to begin with, but one thing that sets this game apart from 2016 and makes it the far better experience is the long-awaited return of the briefcase.
Two targets remaining. So, that's Stephen Bradley taken care of. Well done.
The other big addition was IO's attempt at multiplayer. In Ghost mode, 2 players will be loaded into a world where they will have 5 targets to attempt to kill, and whoever scores 5 kills first wins. I was surprised how much I ended up liking this idea. At launch, I played it with a few friends and had a blast. The only issue that I really saw with it is that since both players are in separate worlds and just see a phantom of the other running around theirs, the worlds aren't identical simulations, so a lot of rounds ended up being lost or won due to RNG of AI placement. Sometimes people would just get a massive head start because the first target was surrounded by nobody for one player and they were easily just able to kill them in the first 5 seconds of a match starting. Now, for those who watched the last episode of this retrospective, you'll remember me talking about depreciating content and the non-permanence of always online servers. While making this video, the servers for Ghost mode actually went offline. I tried to find a few matches of my own for some gameplay, but I couldn't find any. So then I tried to ask a friend to play it with me, but he was going to be busy until September 13th, which the servers went offline 13 days prior. Thanks, Kane. So yeah, that mode is just completely inaccessible forever now. It's gone forever. If you didn't get to play it, then you'll never get to play it because IO said that they aren't bringing it back for Hitman 3, which is a shame because I think they could have tweaked it a little and made it even better. But as proof of me trying to find matches just before the servers went down, nobody was playing this, so it was probably an operating cost not worth paying. Despite only being a 2-year gap from Hitman 2016, Hitman 2 looks even better. That's not to say 2016 looks bad by any means, but just loading into the tutorial level Hawkeye Bay, you can see the graphical leap. At times, it's easy to forget the dire straits that the company has been in and the seemingly tight budgets these 2 games have been working on. This game sports some of the largest and, in my opinion, best levels in the entire series. Miami might just be my favorite level in the entire series. It's really hard for me to decide. A bunch of these levels are so good. When this game first came out, I put 18 hours just in Miami, trying to fully master it before moving on to anything else because I enjoyed it so much I wanted to see every nook and cranny of this level. The only place that the budget restraints are really felt to me is in the cutscenes. No longer do we have the amazing CG cutscenes by Platage Image. This time around, they're mostly still images that pan or zoom, similar to something you would find in a history documentary that you'd watch in school. Some of these do have effects going on in them, so they aren't 100% still images, but I can't help but wish we got more of what was in 2016 because they were amazing. Maybe this was their artistic vision for the story being told in this game, and and I'm just talking out of my ass, but I'm led to believe I'm not because the DLC locations had in-engine cutscenes. While they don't look nearly as good as the pre-rendered one by Playtage, they are still nice. While talking about the cutscenes, I guess now would be as good as time as any to talk about the game's story. I want to preface this by saying I don't think it's bad, but it runs into the issue like I mentioned earlier with being the middle game in a trilogy, so the plot doesn't really go anywhere near as far as I wish it did. In the last game, Diana and 47 were looking into the Shadow Client and found out that the Illuminati Patriot-esque organization called Providence does indeed exist. At the end of the game, Diana was convinced by a soft-spoken man to hunt down the Shadow Client who had been employing the ICA to kill Providence operatives. If Diana and the ICA agreed to this man's conditions, she would be given the information of the lost past of Agent 47. This plot setup is paid off in Hitman 2, with Lucas Gray ended up being a part of the Ortmeyer experiments as Subject 6, so he knew 47 as a child. But at the same time, I can't help but feel like we're still at square one by the end of this game. We capture the Constant, the guy who is supposedly running Providence, but at the end of the second DLC location, he escapes, which it clearly sets up for him being the big bad of the third game. With the exception of Contracts, and even then depending on how you feel about that game, you could play all of the games, even Absolution, beforehand and get a complete self-contained satisfying narrative without feeling like you have to now wait for a sequel. It does set up one thing that I'm really interested in and worried about for the narrative of Hitman 3. To find a lead on the leaders of Providence, 47 is given a serum that will resurface the erased memories that he lost due to the Ortmeyer experiments. This seems to have also given 47 back some range of deeper emotions, so I'm curious if they will play this as a gradual return or relearning of long lost feelings, or will it be a very immediate feeling for the player in 3, or maybe they aren't going to do this at all and I'm just misinterpreting 47's body language and facial expressions in the cutscenes. The potential worry that I have for where they will take 47's character stems from the wording that they use in the Hitman 3 trailer, because it feels vaguely similar to all the things said in the lead up to Absolution. But I will both give them the benefit of the doubt and have some faith, because in the last two games they've proven that they know what they're doing. This is overall an issue that I think will be resolved in time once the next installment is out, similar to games like Halo 2, which suffered the same feeling during its initial release. But despite my issues, the game's narrative does have some shining moments, like during the final level of the base game, where you infiltrate a secret society's party and you could walk around and listen to the insanity of these billionaire doomsday preppers and their secret fallout shelter in Antarctica. This is exactly what I want for my international spy thriller, or how one of your main targets in Colombia, Rico Delgado, is the nephew of Fernando Delgado, one of your targets from the Vineyard level in Hitman Blood Money. You could even hear him talk about how he wants to find and capture the man who killed his family members. This is the fan service that I love. Just little nice touches like these that are there for longtime fans. Hitman 2 seriously made me consider which is my favorite in the series. Before this game's release, I would have said Blood Money without any hesitation, but now depending on the day, I may say Hitman 2. It is a little hard to compare them since they are different in structure, and it really comes down to which do you prefer, but man does this game have some really high highs and give Blood Money a run for its money. Hitman 2 released to great critical reception, scoring an 82 for both PS4 and PC, and an 84 for the Xbox One on Metacritic. Now, we don't know the exact sales numbers, so I can't say for sure if it was a success or not, as I don't know what IO's break-even points are or their sales goals. But just using Steam charts, you can see that the all-time peak players for Hitman 2 is leagues higher than Hitman 2016. And if that game was considered a success by IO, I think it's safe to say that this one probably was too. At the time of recording this, IO has just announced that Hitman 3 is going to be a year-long Epic Games Store exclusive. I fear this will inevitably hurt the initial PC sales numbers, and possibly future ones after it comes to Steam, as the Epic Games Store has a massive stigma to it, especially with how many basic features it still lacks. I would much prefer to just own Hitman 3 on Steam, but if being an Epic Games Store exclusive means that IO can remain independent and self-publish comfortably, I am more than happy for them and hope the company does nothing but succeed, because what they have made is something really special. As of right now, we have reached the end of the Hitman Retrospective. It has been 2 long years working on this. Granted, I have not been working on this completely for these entire 2 years, as I have made plenty of other projects in the meantime. This has been a great and really fun learning experience, as I have not done anything like this, and I felt like it gave me a lot of the much needed know-how for tackling something like the Yakuza Retrospective. And all I can do is hope that Hitman 3 really lives up to the hype and is a bombastic finale and climax for the rebooted trilogy. If you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thanks for watching as always. If you really liked this series, please, I ask, share it around because they sadly don't get a lot of views. And if you really like the channel, maybe consider becoming a patron on Patreon. All patrons get access to my videos a day early, and I'm now going to shout out my $5 and up patrons who really help support the channel. Bully, Lucy the Fox, Comrade Fox, Tristan the White Wolf, Matthew Elliott, Dusty the Zombie, Filthy Finger 69, Clivermort, Fies, William Moore, Mr. Kill Jr., Tyler Schertzer, Some Panda, Poke Joke S, Joshua DiLarino, Chichomatrius, Ben Johnson, Sarah Chan, Oods of Nudes, Fish Kami, Joan Eisen, Alejandro Benitez, Star Fox, Flarbu, and Mitchell. Thanks so much, guys. Mwah. If you're a card game player of any kind, I have a TCG Player affiliate link in the description below. Any purchases you make using this link will result in a small kickback for me, which is just another easy way to support the channel without having to do anything. Follow me on Twitter to keep up to date with what I'm working on next, and as for my next project, I'm really not sure. I mentioned it a few videos ago at this point because it has been a few weeks, as these videos have been spaced out despite already being made, that I'm torn between a Kill the Past video covering the Silver Case, Flower, Sun, and Rain, Killer 7, and the 25th Ward, or a Ratchet & Clank Future Trilogy review, or continue the Yakuza Retrospective doing Yakuza 2. I think I might push back the Kill the Past video, as No More Heroes 3 has been delayed to 2021, so that does give me a little bit of breathing room because I wanted to release these towards the lead up of that game, which is the same idea with the Ratchet & Clank Future Trilogy review, as Rift Apart I believe is this year. Who knows, maybe I'll do a Silent Hill review video, or maybe I'll do Metal Gear Solid. I don't know, I have so many ideas and I'm not really sure what I want to do next, but whatever it may be, I hope you look forward to it and enjoy it. And as always, thanks for watching and see you next time.